Hey guys, Michael here from youtube.com/therevived1. In this video comparison, I have the Nokia 5800 Xpressmusic and the Apple iPhone 3GS. I'm going to be running through 5 categories including hardware, the touchscreen in particular, the features of each device, the App Store, and call quality. So we'll start off with hardware first. The 5800 isn't as solid as I would like. It just feels like a little weak. When you hold it in your hand, it feels a little bit clumsy and it feels like the plastic is moving. And the back plate, it just doesn't feel as solid as I would like. Again, it just feels a little bit wobbly and not as well constructed as the iPhone 3GS, which is elegantly designed, feels extremely solid in your hand. Everybody knows what it feels like. It feels tight, it feels like everything's compact, and it doesn't feel like stuff's wobbling around on the inside. The one problem with the 3GS is it's really scratch prone on the chrome and on the glossy back finish. And that's an issue because then you have to buy a case, you have to buy protection, whatever. The 5800 outside of the box, this is all plastic, so that's a negative because it's not as cool, I guess, or as solidly constructed, but in which case you don't need a case. So I have to award the 3GS the winner in this category, but the 5800 is no slouch in terms because you don't have to buy a case, but it's just, again, not as solid as I would have liked, and as solid as other smartphones that I've even tested. Specifically the touchscreen. These two touchscreens actually use different technologies. The 5800 is a resistive touchscreen and the iPhone 3GS is a capacitive touchscreen. Now what that means is for resistive, 2 pieces of plastic you have to push down and the 2 pieces of plastic that make up the screen push together and that registers an input. With the capacitive screen, essentially what happens is electrons flow from your finger onto the screen. Now the problem with resistive is it's not as accurate, and the problem with capacitive is if you're wearing gloves or something that's blocking that flow, it's not going to work. So in really cold places, the capacitive touchscreen is a negative. But the Symbian, it just kind of feels like on the 5800 that they just took the Symbian operating system, which, love it or hate it, it's the Symbian operating system. It's really popular in Europe. And it just feels like they took that Symbian operating system and just sort of added on touch at the last second. That's kind of how I feel. And in some cases, I click it with my finger and it doesn't work, and I keep trying to do it and it still doesn't work, and then I do a double click and it works. So sometimes you need double, sometimes single, and it's not really clear when to use the one or the other. And text input is also kind of hard. Really, you can't do it with your finger. You got to use the infamous stylus that comes in there as well. For the iPhone 3GS, again, capacitive touchscreen, and it's super finger-friendly. Apple really did a great job with their operating system, and they made it so no stylus is required. Really, there's no reason to ever use a stylus, and it's totally finger-friendly. So the 3GS wins that round. But keep in mind, if you're looking at a capacitive touchscreen and you live in a cold place that you wear gloves a lot, that's going to be an issue. In terms of features, now for the third category, the 5800 has a full HTML browser, but it doesn't support multi-touch, so browsing is really kind of hard and annoying on this device. It has several on-screen keyboards, but the one that really makes sense is full QWERTY. The other ones don't really work, and even if you just use the numeric input, when you're dialing something, a number, let's say, it doesn't actually have the letters on it that correspond, so it's kind of ridiculous in that regard. And there's also no autocorrect on those keyboards, so if you attempt to use your fingers, which probably is not a good idea, even if you use a stylus and you're trying to go quick, there's no autocorrect, so it gets very frustrating. In terms of connectivity, it has Wi-Fi, HSDPA at 3.6 megabits per second max, and it has full GPS support in Nokia maps. It also includes stereo Bluetooth profiles, file and application managers, and speaker-independent voice commands. For the music player, it's actually it's just basic looking, but you have some cool features, including the ability to adjust the balance. You can use a bass booster. There's 5 equalizer settings that you can choose from, and it has support for podcasts, and actually with an external dongle you can listen to FM radio. That's something that's interesting to have, FM radio, but in practice I find I never really used it, and talking to people that have Zunes who had that FM radio, they said they didn't really use it as well, so the same principle applies here. Now, one problem is you cannot currently download music in the United States from the Nokia Music Store, so that's kind of a bummer that you have to transfer everything to the device. The 3.2 megapixel Carl Zeiss camera is truly one of the bigger selling points of this device. Nokia always does a good job with their cameras. Carl Zeiss does a great job with their lenses and sensors that they use, So put together, they result some good with the resulting quality is very good. There's 6 scene modes, including macro. There's autofocus and auto white balance. There's a 3-time digital zoom, although I don't recommend digital zoom. I'm sure you've heard me rant about that before. But digital zoom is just basically cropping, and it's not that great. So really, zoom, no, not that much. You also have options for ISO sensitivity, exposure, contrast, and sharpness, and the dual LED flash is very powerful. But to not be overwhelming, you have choices, so you can turn it to red eye reduction, for instance. You also have modes such as always on or off, and automatic. Its camcorder records at VGA resolution, 30 frames per second. It has 5 quality modes, and you can use the dual LEDs as just a light. It also has MMS copy, paste, and tethering built in. Symbian has had that for a while, so if you need those features, you have it, and it works very nicely. And the cost of the 5800 Xpressmusic, this is the North American model, that's going to run you $339 unsubsidized, so you don't have to sign a contract. And it'll run on AT&T or T-Mobile in the United States. Pretty much, you need GSM. The 3GS has a great web browser with multi-touch. Browsing, scrolling, and using tabs is unparalleled on other mobile devices I've tested. Really, multi-touch in general is the way to go in terms of touchscreens. Apple pioneered that technology. The capacitive touchscreen works wonderfully with the operating system. So browsing is just so smooth and elegant with the updated processor and the 3GS and their multi-touch inputs. And yeah. Keyboards also work wonderfully. The vertical keyboard or the widescreen keyboard both work wonderfully. Easily done with just your fingers. And there's also autocorrect, which works very well. And if you're not into that, you can turn it off, but autocorrect works well with most cell phone keyboards that I've used. It also, again, has Wi-Fi, HSDPA, stereo, Bluetooth, just like the 5800. And the iPod function makes it easy to listen to music, podcasts, and videos. It's really easy to sync. You just plug it in with iTunes and you're good to go. And iTunes works on all platforms, so you're pretty much set there. Also, you can download music, movies, podcasts, and TV shows directly to your device, which makes it really simple to expand the content that you have available on the device. Its 3 megapixel camera isn't a Carl Zeiss lens, but it still works quite well with VGA recording. And I think when you compare these two, pictures and video are pretty much the same. You have more options in terms of customization and what you want to take with the 5800, but just the auto stuff that Apple puts in, they both work just nicely. There's also MMS and tethering in the 3GS, but that's not available everywhere, particularly in the United States. As for price, you're looking at $199 or $299 for a 16 or 32 gigabyte model. That's with a 2-year contract, $399 and $499 for early upgrade, and $599 and $699 respectively for no contract. So it's significantly more money, but for the average, but it's hard to compare because there is no subsidized price for this. So $339, I guess, if you compare to the unsubsidized 16 gigabyte model, compared to $599, there's a big difference there. But most people will just get this with a contract. So I have to call features a draw. Apple really picked it up with features, and Nokia hasn't really added a lot to the Symbian operating system since I last compared a Apple and Nokia phone. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now the App Store. The OV Store, which is where you can download your apps. They also had Download, which is just an application. But the OV Store is improved over Download, but it only has 238 apps, and I couldn't find anything worth downloading. I mean, I downloaded AP News, and it was alright, but it wasn't anything that I'd write home about or anything to compare to I guess, the Wall Street Journal app or the USA Today app. There's just so many other choices. Quick is also available for the 5800, which allows you to live stream. I expect that to come to the iPhone. It's not currently available, but it was pretty cool. And there's no free Twitter apps in the OV store, which is a little disappointing because there's no way I'm ever going to pay for a Twitter application. Now, the App Store, it's pretty restricted in terms of what Apple allows you to put on, but what's there, the App Store is loaded. There's apps for everything. In terms of App Store, the Apple's App Store definitely beats the OV Store, hands down. And our final category, call quality, I have to give that to the 3GS as well. The 3GS had crisp sound and the speakerphone was really good. The 5800 was a little bit soft in my testing. There's also some echoes and it picks up environmental noise a lot more than the 3GS does. And particularly the speakerphone was weak. That's really why I gave the iPhone 3GS the edge to the speakerphone. So looking at the categories, the iPhone 3GS has won 4 of them. One category was a draw. So I thank you for watching this comparison. Have a nice day.